Welcome back, everybody. Today's deep dive is going to be pretty intense, I think. We're going to be talking about some big ideas, life, happiness, suffering, and we'll even be talking about creativity.
Yeah, you've sent over some really interesting material. It looks like it touches upon some pretty profound concepts, transcendental meditation even.
Yeah. This transcript dives into how those big concepts are actually related. I thought it was super fascinating.
Well, one of the things that jumped out at me right away was the idea that, happiness isn't something you find, out there in the world. It's something that you cultivate inside yourself.
Right. Like that's an idea that's been around forever, but
Yeah.
how do we actually do that? I mean, in this crazy world.
Yeah. And this transcript actually suggests some ways to do that.
How does it?
Yeah, it mentions transcendental meditation as a practice for accessing that kind of inner peace.
Oh, wow. Transcendental meditation. Now, have you ever tried that?
I have.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because it's not about, emptying your mind or focusing on a specific object or anything like that. It's about transcending thought altogether.
Really?
Yeah, you're accessing a state of pure awareness. So basically, the source material is suggesting that by practicing this regularly, you can tap in to this reservoir of inner peace that isn't dependent on external circumstances.
Okay, that makes sense in theory, but come on. How easy is it to actually find inner peace when we're constantly bombarded with stress and pressure and just negativity everywhere you look?
You're absolutely right. It's a practice. It's not a quick fix.
Uh,
But even taking small steps toward cultivating inner peace can really have a ripple effect on your whole life.
but you're saying it's not about instantly achieving this perfect state of Zen. It's about gradually shifting your perspective.
Exactly. And the transcript actually suggests that as you cultivate inner peace, your perspective starts to change the way you react to challenges, changes.
Yeah.
And suffering actually starts to diminish. It's like you develop this inner resilience.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we're working on finding that inner peace. Now, this transcript also talks about ideas and creativity. And I love how it emphasizes that this isn't just for artists.
Yeah.
This is something that's a fundamental part of what it means to be human.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I found really compelling about this transcript was the idea that creativity is tied to this inherent human need to express ourselves,
Yeah.
to make meaning out of our experiences.
Yeah, totally. I mean, whether you're writing a song or designing a website or even just coming up with a better way to organize your closet, it's all an expression of that creative spark.
Hmm.
What really stood out to me was they actually quote Robin Williams in this transcript.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he compares the feeling of creating to the reward you get from sex,
Wow.
releasing a spark of endorphins.
That's a powerful analogy.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically saying that creativity is this deeply satisfying experience. It's not just about the end product, it's about the process itself.
No.
Right. And another thing the source material points out is that it's not about whether your creations are successful in the eyes of the world or whatever. It's about pursuing those ideas that really resonate with you.
Yeah, that feeling of liberation when you're creating, just for the joy of it, not for, external validation or anything.
Exactly. It's about tapping into that inner voice, that unique perspective that only you have. And honoring that voice, even if it feels unconventional or different.
Totally.
So we've talked about finding that inner peace and embracing our creativity. But how does this translate into a better world? Because the transcript actually suggests there's a pretty strong link there between individual transformation and a more peaceful society.
It is fascinating how these seemingly personal journeys, finding inner peace, expressing our creativity, can have such a profound impact on the world around us. The source material seems to suggest that as individuals tap into their, inner peace and creative energy, it kind of overflows into our interactions with others, into our communities, even into, efforts to create a more just and peaceful world.
Right. It's like you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to fill yourself up first.
You need to fill yourself up first before you can truly give to others.
Mm.
And when we're filled with that sense of inner peace and creative energy, it naturally kind of radiates outwards.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's funny because they bring up Robin Williams again here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this time he's reflecting on the idea that despite all our differences,
Yeah.
we all come from the same place. We all share the same human essence. Underneath it all, we're all connected.
That's a really powerful point,
Mm-hmm.
especially in today's world, where things feel so divided.
Oh.
We tend to focus on the things that separate us, the whole us versus them mentality. But this transcript is emphasizing that recognizing our shared humanity, that fundamental interconnectedness, That's actually the foundation for genuine peace.
Okay. I can see how that makes sense on like a theoretical level.
Yeah.
But how do we actually bridge those divides? How do we move past those differences and create real lasting change?
Well, the transcript doesn't really offer any simple solutions.
Hmm.
And rightfully so. These are complex issues.
Yeah.
But it does suggest that it starts with individual transformation.
Okay.
So as we cultivate inner peace, as we connect with our own creativity, it kind of radiates outwards.
Hmm.
And it influences how we interact with others, how we approach conflict, how we build bridges instead of walls.
So it's like this ripple effect, starting with the individual and then expanding outward to touch families, communities, and eventually the world.
Precisely. And this kind of brings us to another key theme that emerges from the source material, the importance of freedom and commitment, particularly in the realm of creative expression.
Now, when I talk about freedom here,
Okay.
they're specifically talking about like artistic freedom.
Right, like staying true to your own vision and not compromising your work just to please others or fit in.
Got it.
Yeah.
So the transcript is basically saying that it's important to maintain your artistic integrity.
Yeah, because when we silence our own voice, when we try to conform to external expectations,
Yeah.
it can actually dilute the power and authenticity of our work.
I see that. But isn't compromise just part of life? I mean, in our relationships, our careers, we're constantly having to, you know, make concessions.
Yeah.
So how do we know when to stand our ground and when to bend?
It's a delicate balance, for sure. And the source material doesn't really offer any, hard and fast rules about this.
Yeah.
But it does suggest that we need to be mindful of the compromises we make, especially when it comes to our creative expression.
Okay.
It's about discerning the difference between healthy compromise and sacrificing our core values or creative vision.
So maybe it's about finding that sweet spot where you can, collaborate with others, be open to feedback, but also stay true to that inner voice that guides your creative process.
Exactly. And that principle applies not just to art, but to life in general.
Hmm?
The transcript is encouraging us to hold on to that freedom of thought, that ability to create and express ourselves authentically,
Hmm.
even in a world that often pushes us towards conformity.
That's a great point. And speaking of staying true to yourself, they bring back Robin Williams one last time.
Oh, really?
And he has this really inspiring perspective on finding work that truly resonates with you. He says that even though the work might be tough, even though it might challenge you, if you find something that connects you to the world and to what truly matters, it's all worth it.
There's a deep sense of purpose in that statement, a recognition that finding work that aligns with your values and passions can be incredibly fulfilling, even amidst the challenges.
Totally. It's like he's saying, yeah, life is hard, but find that thing that lights you up, that connects you to something bigger than yourself, and go after it with everything you've got.
It's a powerful message.
Mm.
And it actually ties back to that theme of interconnectedness we were discussing earlier. When we find work that resonates with our souls, it often leads us to contribute to the world in meaningful ways, to connect with others who share our passions, and to create a ripple effect of positive change.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground here. Inner peace, creativity, shared humanity, finding work that resonates. It's almost like a roadmap for living a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
It is. And what I find so compelling is how all of these themes intertwine and reinforce each other.
Yeah.
It's not about mastering one thing in isolation. It's about cultivating a way of being in the world that embraces all of these dimensions.
But how do we actually put this into practice? It all sounds great in theory, but what about like the nitty-gritty of everyday life?
Yeah, that's where the real work begins. And the transcript kind of acknowledges that there isn't like a step-by-step guide or anything.
Right. It's not a recipe.
It's really unique to each person.
So it's not about finding like the one right answer, but more about like asking the right questions.
Exactly. It's about examining our own beliefs and behaviors.
Yeah.
Identifying those areas where we might be out of alignment with our values. And then, taking small but consistent steps to actually create change. It's a process of self-discovery.
Yeah.
And it can be messy
I bet.
and challenging at times.
Yeah.
But, it's worth it.
I'm hearing a theme here. It seems like a lot of this comes down to self-awareness.
Yeah.
That willingness to really, look inward and examine our own thoughts and feelings and motivations.
Absolutely. And this transcript even hints at the idea that self-awareness is not like a destination.
Mm.
It's an ongoing journey. It's about cultivating a sense of curiosity about ourselves, a willingness to be honest, about our strengths and our weaknesses, and just like a commitment to continuous growth.
So we're not striving for perfection, but rather for progress.
Precisely. It's about embracing the journey with all its ups and downs and trusting that, the process itself will lead us to greater fulfillment and meaning.
Okay, so as we're wrapping up this deep dive, I want to bring it back to the listener. We've talked about some pretty profound concepts here.
We have.
What's the one thing you hope people listening take away from all this?
If I had to choose one key takeaway, I think it would be this. You have the power to create a life that is aligned with, your values, your passions, your deepest sense of purpose.
Yep.
It starts with, cultivating inner peace, embracing your creativity,
Yeah.
recognizing your interconnectedness with, all beings.
We're all in this together.
Exactly. We are. And by tapping into those gifts, by embracing our authentic selves, we not only enrich our own lives, but we contribute to a more beautiful, compassionate, and peaceful world.
So well said. Well, folks, it looks like we've reached the end of another depth dive.
Yeah.
We explored some pretty heady stuff today, but I hope you've come away with some new insights and a renewed sense of hope.
The conversation doesn't end here.
Yeah.
We encourage you to keep exploring these ideas, to challenge your own assumptions, and to, find ways to apply these insights to your own life.
And if you're feeling inspired, maybe even, share your thoughts with someone else. Who knows? You might just spark a ripple effect of positive change.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep questioning, keep creating, and keep believing in the power of human connection.